How you doing, Jackson?
I'm good.
Oh, okay. You wanna talk to him? Mark did come and talk to me about sprinklers, but we didn't get a chance to look at stuff. What we would recommend if you guys want, we'll bring back stuff and then I can summarize it and make it. So, we didn't get a chance to look at it.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know.
Do the pledge.
No, wait till we start the, yeah. You can go ahead, we're ready to go whenever.
Okay, we'd like to call this preliminary meeting to order, and it will be involved with the motor, commercial vehicle, RV, and trailer storage and parking. Now, everyone should have gotten the information, the ordinance, and the additions on there. Now, does anyone have anything to say about everything that was put in there?
You mean the red?
The red.
Yeah, I got that.
And blue.
Let's start from the beginning, I guess. The gross vehicle weight, page, looks like page 2, section 1030.04. Yes, I mean, I don't know how that got overlooked, but we just didn't want anybody coming on city streets with something that's gonna break them up, and we figured 15,000 was about max. Gary, do you think that's good?
Well, yeah, it shouldn't be more than that, you know, just a tractor alone is heavy enough without a trailer.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't go any more than that, for
Yeah.
sure. I've been there, done that,
Yep, so we just
I've
need
had to
to-
repair a street.
Yeah, we just need to
So-
take out the without.
Yes, yeah.
Take out without.
Yep.
So strike this.
And then page 3, same section, G. I've got no problem with the not using reclaimed blacktop millings, that's prohibited. I think the reason we went with 5 feet instead of 3 feet, you gotta remember an outbuilding is square. A trailer, the wheels are 2 foot underneath the edge. So if we make it 3 feet and they run it all the way to the side, my guess is the side of that trailer, camper, truck, whatever, is gonna be hanging over the property line.
Right.
That's all I could come up with.
Well, the other thing is too, is that on the developments, the subdivisions, a lot of times you have a 5 foot for, you know, easement for the utilities, and then you also need, you may need emergency vehicles getting to the back of the property. And I'm assuming that's why they decided on 5 foot, so you have a 10 foot width without any blockage, potentially, to get back there.
Well, like I say, it'd be 8 feet because the wheels are sitting in a couple of feet from the edge of the trailer, so I don't know if
Well, you gotta figure the other guy on the other side too.
if he's got something parked there.
No, excuse me. Can I?
I don't know, ask him.
Yeah,
What?
Mr. Mayor. The reason I put that one in there, a building can be 3 feet in the new additions, in the new code. So you can have a 3 foot building with a 1.5 foot overhang. So, you know, that's your structure you're building.
So you're saying that the side setback for a new home is 3 foot from the property line?
Accessory building,
What about the house?
5.
So that's.
Yeah, cause it's
that's
10,
what-
it's 5 and 5 because it has
Yeah.
to be 10 for fire code.
Yeah.
Okay, but now if we're going down to 3, are we still meeting fire code?
Most of those accessory buildings too are not next to a garage or a driveway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's back a ways.
It was just a
They're
question.
usually in back or whatever.
Having a little
yeah,
closer
yeah.
to the property line, I don't
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
gonna be an issue, but with this, because they're parking next to the garage, next to the driveway, I think that should stay the same, but that's my opinion.
It was just a question we got by a lot of residents on this. It was the reason why, it doesn't matter to me. It came up multiple, a handful of times, if not more. I don't know if a lot of houses were placed, that whatever feet off the line where to get their vehicle, they can't, plus enough to sit.
But see, potentially, then, the way I read this, that side lot line goes from the street all the way to the back property line.
Yes, but your front yards, I gotta think about that one.
We did.
But I think that was where we came up with, what I'm saying is you've got the house, let's say on the edge of the house is 5 feet from the property line. That's the required setback. Now, you could theoretically, couldn't you park that trailer in front of the garage or whatever, but now it's sticking over 3 feet from the property line. And say somebody on the other side potentially could do it, so now you've only got a total of
6 feet.
what is that? 3 feet, 6 feet between those trailers. If, in that situation, if there was a reason to get an emergency vehicle to the back of the property, you couldn't get it back.
That has to be 20 feet for an access, so that doesn't qualify.
So what is it? Is it?
A vehicle's 20 feet access, so you don't have access on every,
There is, I know there's a state building code requires 10 feet between structures. So maybe it's not fire, maybe it's just state building code, maybe I misspoke there.
it's fire, but its access is different.
Okay.
That's a truck.
So, okay. Then I guess the 3 foot doesn't make any difference, then if you wanna change it to 3 feet from my,
Yeah, I like that.
You okay with blocking the backyard for an emergency vehicle?
They won't be blocking the whole thing.
Well, if 6 feet, I would say that blocks it. Don't you think?
Most vehicles are about
But a
8
side yard
feet
setback
wide,
is
is that the
3, right?
limit
My
on a
shed
road,
is-
102 inches? Isn't that the width maximum that you
Correct,
can have?
Accessory.
correct,
Are
yeah,
your fire
yeah.
trucks and
I have an
emergency
accessory.
vehicles, are your fire trucks and emergency vehicles more than 101 inches wide on any of your things that you would need to get around the back of a house, I guess, I don't care about anything. That's about 8 feet, a little over 8 feet. I think my trailer is 101, and I think that's max they can make a trailer, but I don't know if your emergency
They're
vehicle.
probably the same.
Total width could be only 102, total width,
I try to keep that width,
yeah.
if you could, in case they gotta get back there. That's
I
my
mean, what
opinion.
if you need to get a fire hose or a ladder or something, if the fire's at the back of the house? You just can't get back there.
That's why I read that.
Well, we never have. We've always parked on the street and carried everything to the back.
That's why you have to be within 150 feet of that's why a building, if you're more than 150 feet, has to be sprinkled or something like that. That gets.
Yeah, so it's still, we wouldn't be taking the big trucks back of the house.
You just carry the ladder or carry
The
the hose.
ladder, drag the hose
Okay.
back there. That's what we always have done.
So this is basically just the park, what we're envisioning is people parking, say, their trailer or whatever in the backyard, and it's gonna be, could potentially be within 3 foot of the side lot line.
Well, the wheels, yeah.
Mark?
The spot I got it more was on the side of the garages.
Okay.
We had, I know one on Laney, was one on Brittany. I mean, I was trying to think the ones that, there's several that just did it.
Okay, so they're within 3 foot of the property line?
They couldn't make the 3 feet and get a vehicle on there and then still get out of your vehicle, you know, if you back in.
Okay. Cause they're obviously not parking on the side of the house.
That's where they wanna park, on the side of the garage.
Well,
That's why I brought it up. This isn't gonna matter to me one bit.
The garage shouldn't be more than 5 feet from the property line.
It must be 15 feet off or something, or whatever the footage would be where you don't have, you know, they have enough to get a vehicle slab in there, but they can't just fit the vehicle on it.
Well, then, I don't know, I don't see a problem with the 3 feet then, so. I don't know how often that would come up.
Yeah, very little.
I
Any,
think we were just going with the 5 feet originally because on most, plats, you see they have that utility actually.
Match something.
Yeah.
But as I thought about it today, like I say, the wheels are definitely inside of the trailer.
Yeah.
Motorhome, I don't know about a regular trailer, I mean, the axles vary on those.
I think 3 feet is the one that makes sense to me as opposed to 5.
Being that there is an instance where.
I mean, you're talking on the side. It just, that's more reasonable than 5.
yep. Okay, no.
Next thing I'd like to 10:30.12. At a specific date in April. This was a good year to set this because, we had late snow. So, 15th, I think should cover it, but depends on how everybody else feels.
Well, when do you take your road restrictions out?
I think we're just adding more.
The parking restrictions.
Yeah, April 1st they come off.
Okay, well then it should probably be the same as the parking restriction.
Yeah.
I think we should have a date, so,
So we will go on.
yeah, there was nothing in there.
Well, it should match up with whatever the city parking restrictions are.
Okay.
I think either one.
And then I have a question for Sarah, you know, on this subdivision 3 where they've got 3 lines of changes, starting with utility trailers. You said you had quite a few comments on social media the last few weeks about, the current ordinance?
No, there was just some, sorry, there was just some today on just attending the meeting and questions, concerns on the ordinance itself. The fact that it's kind of been back and forth for a couple years now. Just a lot of general discussion. If you have specific questions on subdivision 3, I'll probably defer that to Mark. This was just, suggested change.
Mark?
Mr. Mayor, reason I wrote that part there, it spells out, you know, you can put your trailer stuff, but you still can't put your motorized stuff back there. That's a whole nother topic you guys need to address, if we're gonna allow that or not. But, you know, that might get it more complicated. But that's why it took 4 lines to spell out from the wording you guys had above. It still is eliminating parking a big Winnebago back there.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's why it's so long.
I think we should put a restriction on the trailer length. When you say big Winnebago, some people have different visions of what big is.
Backyard should be utility only.
Yeah. 20
Well-
feet or less, I guess.
And that kind of gets into subdivision, you know, you're talking 3 and then 4 here. And I think that's, you know, there has to be some discussion, cause there are some parking in the rear yard that's happening, you know. What is it going to be? Is it gonna be length? I think we need to have very specific guidelines on that, so that the council then can provide for very consistent enforcement. Whatever it is.
like that.
Well, when you added that, you listed all those things, and some people have all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't just have one of them. So are we gonna allow all those things parked outdoors on the grass? I mean, 15 things lined up?
Well,
I think we have a limit, though.
We did limit the amount of cars they could have.
But
which I
none of
thought
these are
was
cars.
Which I thought was excessive, but everybody else agreed that 6 was okay.
I
think
thought
read
that,
somewhere.
except me, I
That's
don't.
But I agree with you.
Personal
You know,
water.
We're opening an
Oh,
invitation
personal
to,
water.
I took it right from the top.
the idea behind this ordinance is to try to
Yep, it took it from here and put it here.
clean up the neighborhood a little bit. I mean, we're not trying to restrict people from doing anything. They proved to us that they can't keep it neat, so we try to make a rule that says, no, you gotta keep it neat. And now everybody's nitpicking on how we decided to do that. If we didn't have a problem to begin with, I think we probably wouldn't have went through the crushed granite parking area, keep the grass trimmed, but we've had quite a few residents that haven't kept the grass trimmed. And we just didn't feel like that they would. And we thought the easiest way to do that, if they're not gonna trim, some people will. I mean, there's some very conscientious people in this community, I don't wanna get it wrong. But a few spoil it for everyone, you know, that's how every law is made.
Yep.
And unfortunately, everyone has to live because we have stupid people or people that don't care, excuse me, that, you know, won't keep it up and make the place look nice. I took a little ride around town here a couple of days ago, and I'll tell you what, it still looks like there's trash outside now. A lot of people haven't done their spring cleaning, so I'm not gonna jump to conclusions. But another month, take a drive around town.
Yeah.
See how it looks. There's a lot of trash out there, you know, whether it's toys, things, junk, I don't know. But the idea is, you brought up a good point. How much do you want sitting outside? You know, and with the way this is written, it's like an invitation to park it all out there.
Yep.
That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yep.
Plus, this is a trailer ordinance, not an ATV ordinance, not a trailer truck parking, you know. If they've got one snowmobile or an ATV that they keep covered up, chances are that thing's gonna be staying there until fall when they use it. They got a wheeler, yeah, that's probably gonna get used and moved around.
Yeah.
But the question is how neat is the property gonna look? And I just feel like this is an invitation to be able to park everything you want.
Storage isn't the only problem, it's the upkeep that goes along with it. That's the big thing.
But I look at this and I have neighbors that have like all of it. So is that all gonna be lined up? I mean, that's, how many things is that? 10?
Yep. And the other thing we have to consider is this ordinance wasn't made for the people that aren't up high. This ordinance was made for the next door neighbor, for the guy behind the back lot, for the one that can see all this stuff constantly. That's what we made this ordinance for.
Yeah.
That's a good point, yes,
I think we gotta remember that.
yes.
Yep.
Who lives out in the country, well,
If I could,
Sarah,
yeah,
yes.
if for the sake of time. So I think what we need to decide, what can be parked on the side yard, what is the surface? What can be parked in the rear yard, what is the surface allowed? And then if there is going to be any number or length requirements. I mean, that really is what this boils down to. So I think just for the sake of time, we need to focus on that. I think we all have, you know, we've had a lot of history with this ordinance, but let's focus on what do we need to get done, I guess, or what are we looking at allowing and not allowing? Just because the longer this does drag out, I think the more difficult it becomes for the community as well, too, on how we handle this.
Well, personally, I was satisfied with the way, with the additions written and everything. I saw no problem with it. As long as the people keep everything trimmed up and looking neat, I see no problem with it.
I have a problem with parking the big campers and the big utility stuff in the backyard. I have a problem with that. along the side, I'm okay. Put in the backyard, no. That's a problem.
Not a trailer.
No.
That's where it comes in, okay, how big, cause they're making everything bigger,
Well, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, okay, so if we do allow that
Anything with
for
a
the
motor.
backyard, okay, then are we back to, well, it has to be on its own separate hard surface area, and that area is designated for this RV or whatever it is? Is that?
Well, I think the easiest answer is just any single axle trailer. Cause that's lifetime license, boat, trailer, if it's over 12 feet, you're still fine. Go to 14, it's gonna be a dual axle. So no dual axle trailers parked in the back. That'll cover all your campers, all your great big ice castles. Cause they don't make many one axle ice castles that are
Too many.
gigantic. So, I think that's an easiest single axle trailers. You got a dual axle boat trailer, you're gonna have to park it somewhere else.
Maybe put the,
What,
Mark?
maybe put the word out and see what, you know, if we get a lot of feedback on that. I don't know, be a good way to separate it.
in new construction, what's the ratio of green you have to have on your property today?
30% lot coverage, so you can only cover 30% of your lot with buildings or,
30% has to be,
no, we can only cover 30% of your
30%
lot,
is
so
all.
70%.
okay,
But you could do landscaping and other things with that.
alright. 'Cause I think we should take this into consideration, because all of a sudden, we got all this lawn we're covering up with tile, gravel, whatever.
Yeah, and the other thing too is you gotta remember for drainage and stuff like that too, the more impervious you have and things covered up, that can have an
Yeah.
impact.
Other than patios and whatever you want there,
I like the idea about the single axle trailer, as far as size limit.
exactly.
Well, maybe if we add that in there, that would kinda settle everybody, and everybody would.
That's only in the rear yard.
This is the last part, so we wanna get this done so we can decide.
Well, I would still like to have, when you name all these things, I'd like to have a limit to how many you could store on the property. You have utility trailers, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 things that you can park in your side lot.
I would bet you there's, at best, maybe one person that might have one of everything.
Well-
And that's why we've got these storage sheds going up, so they got a place to put it.
But we say, how many vehicles? 6? Did we settle on? What if you can only park 6 of these
And those
things?
are licensed, I think, too.
If they're allowed to have 6 vehicles on a property,
I thought it was.
that seems like a lot.
It does, it does.
I mean, you should almost have a license for a used car lot.
Well, I live in a part of town where the lots are small, so, and I've had more than 6.
Yeah, you know,
So it is a used car lot.
Sarah?
it's
So-
hard to park 6 cars on a normal one.
Sarah?
Can I just clarify so I got my notes correct? Single axle, is this for the side or the rear only? What does that apply to?
That was the rear.
That was the rear.
Rear only, so, and parking surface, no trimmed, like how it's written here is okay, as long as it's maintained?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Can a tandem go on the side or not then? If you have a big camper, can you park it next to your garage?
If you meet the whatever, yeah, that's the word.
Does that have to be hard surface?
Yeah, so then what's the surface requirement for
I
that?
get mixed up what we're doing here.
Is it going to be, you need to have parking surface, hard, durable, dust-free, or clean maintained?
I go back to the same thing. If you got a dual axle or a tri-axle or whatever, you're not gonna wanna park that in the dirt. You're gonna wanna have it on a surface, cause otherwise it's gonna sink if it's that heavy. And if it's next to your house, it's gonna be leaching water, so it's just gonna go. That's my take on it.
Yep.
I would still like to see
Also meets.
Mark's list limited to 6 things, like cars are.
Do you wanna just do 6 generally, like if you have a combination of cars and
Well,
trailers?
in this ordinance where you name all this other stuff, there's 11 things that can be parked on the side. So I say we have 6 vehicles, why not 6 of these things?
So would you be comfortable then with 12 total things?
No, I'm not, but
I'm asking the question.
But that's how it's gonna work out.
I would say, I think on the side lot, if you have all of this stuff, if you have 6 of it, that's a lot of stuff.
You should be able to get that many.
Yep.
Because you don't have that much space.
So if they're not gonna do it anyway, why don't you make me happy and limit it to 6?
Mark?
Mr. Mayor, the reason why there's 12 things listed, if you go to letter O up there in 103004, utility trailer has all that stuff. So if you have it on top, you gotta put it on bottom. You can't have it in one section and not the next section.
Which section was that?
103004O.
Because we don't have any standard definitions listed, he's relisting them all again, which is what you should do.
I relisted everything without a motor. So I couldn't just say utility trailer, cause utility trailer,
Okay.
maybe we could have said utility. Yeah.
Okay, so the side parking requires parking surface.
Purposes such as, I thought there was a reason why.
I don't think we have to redo the definition of utility trailers. I think if we just put an axle limit
Single
for
axle.
this particular storage, I think we'd be okay. Look, now we could.
Oh, cause utility trailer didn't cover
Just
golf
limit
carts
that
and stuff.
utility
Mhm.
trailer back to a single axle, simple as that.
We might need to tweak the definition a bit, cause it's missing a couple items. We can bring that back, if you'd like us to relook at that and add that single axle. But what I still didn't hear is what a consensus is on if there's going to be a maximum number, and then what is the parking surface on the side that's allowed?
I think one of the main reasons that the planning commission decided to require a parking surface also was to discourage someone from putting a large trailer there.
Yeah.
If they wanna go through the work of putting a pad down and keeping it nice and neat and the weeds trimmed, I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
We don't need the gravel on there, but what's that grass gonna look like? Cause I remember last meeting, someone said something about, well, that gravel looks like hell in the backyard, you know? Well, it looks a lot better than dead grass, and it looks a lot better than the trailer sitting there, with ruts and things, so again, discouragement, trying to get people to, if they've got a 20, 30, 40-foot trailer, it really doesn't belong there, in my point of view, again, that's my point of view. Storage places, a lot of outside storage out there that people can take those to, I think they just don't wanna pay whatever the monthly fee is to store that unit. And again, most of the time when people buy toys like that, they don't think about where they're gonna put it, where it's gonna stay for the 6 months they don't use it. And I think that was, the main reason that we required the hard surface. If they're gonna keep it neat, trimmed and tidy, I got no problem with that. But, as well as I do, they pull that thing in and out of there, there's gonna be ruts, there's gonna, you don't know if it's raining, what the lawn's like. We just thought the easiest way was to require this.
Yep, okay. I think we're just gonna have to add these stuff that we discussed and rediscuss it, cause we can't go into the meeting.
So, what we can do is we can do some revisions and resend that out if that works.
Yeah,
We're gonna still have to address though that limit and that side yard surface, so that's something to think about. But just to keep in mind, so everybody knows, this, any final revision still has to go through the city council process. So it would go through the posting on the website and then come to a meeting where it's addressed by the council, prior to any change, so.
I don't think you have to do anything with the side yard because everyone's house is built so the water drains away from the house. I mean, are you gonna put your camper or whatever like this all summer or all winter? You're gonna find a better place to put it. That's just my opinion on that. How many people have a nice level lot? Mine, I mean,
Older part of town, you have nice level lots.
where's the water
Poor
run?
drain, all over the place, I'll
Well,
tell ya.
You get stuck a few times, I'm sure you'll find a better spot.
we'll go on with the meeting. At this time, we will call the regular city council meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's been motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now at 5:31 recess the regular city council meeting to conduct the public hearing on zoning ordinance 466, water and sewer connections. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? Okay, at 5:33, we will reconvene the regular city council meeting. Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance 466, water and sewer connections?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now move on to the wastewater regionalization project construction services. Jared is here from Bolton and Menk to speak. Yeah, come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jared Vogie, Bolton and Menk. The proposal for the construction services portion of the wastewater regionalization project is in your packets this evening, and I'm certainly available for any questions, perhaps maybe an update for council. We've currently been working with the contractor on all their submittals, whether that be piping, pumps, casings, you name it, everything that's going to be going into the project. They're putting those together. We've been reviewing them. We do have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, the 11th, in the afternoon. I believe that's 1 o'clock. And contractors indicated that either late this month or early June, they'd like to get started on the project. So ultimately, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those that I can.
So we're looking at a mid-June start or early June?
End of May, beginning of June is what they've
Okay.
indicated so far. Currently, they're evaluating the timing of piping arrival from their from their suppliers and their subcontractor schedules, so.
Sarah?
If I could just have, some of the questions we've been getting is what kind of activity will we see, probably early on in the project, or what can we expect to see maybe this year as we wait for piping and other things to come in? What kind of other things are they gonna be working on?
Yeah, so the project definitely includes the construction of lift stations as well, so you'll probably see some excavation associated with those structures. Obviously erosion control will be going in. Ultimately, when we have that meeting next week with the contractor, they'll be preparing a schedule and bringing that forth to the meeting, and they'll have a good idea of where they're starting, whether that be in town here, closer to St. Cloud. So they're working diligently to put that all together right now, but ultimately, in terms of the overall project, what you'll really notice is excavation and backhoes moving dirt to get that pipe in the ground. I fully anticipate, and they haven't indicated otherwise, that their pipe won't arrive this year. I believe they want to get started here, like I said, the end of May, beginning of June, and start putting pipe in the ground. Simultaneously, obviously there's a lot of components associated with the project, and there'll be multiple people involved, in addition, with their subcontractors, but lift station excavation will be going on. So excavation will be the name of the summer.
And if I could, maybe you could also just elaborate, we're working on a website, a construction website?
Sure. Yeah, so since the project is so long and there's a lot of different areas associated with it, one of the items that staff has talked about is creating a website to be a centralized location for people to obtain their information about the project, whether that's schedule, where they're working on a weekly, monthly basis. Just there's a lot of properties affected along the route, and I know that a lot of citizens are interested or curious as to what's going on with the project. So creating that website as a central location for people, I think, is going to be a value, not only to the project, but to the residents of the city as well. So ultimately what that looks like is project updates will be posted on the website. There will be a link on the city's website. People can sign up for email and text alerts as alerts or as additional information is added to the website, and they can obtain the information there. My contact information, along with our staff contact information for our project representatives, will be on the website as well. Ultimately, hopefully directing people to us with the latest information as far as schedule and status of the project, and not making it a burden on city staff here at City Hall. So.
Does anyone have any questions for him?
Jared, the estimated hours for the construction staff, that could go up or down, correct?
Yeah, so basically I put those together based on our experience with previous similar projects. A lot of it has to depend on the contractor's schedule, but I'm anticipating that there will be multiple crews on site at once, so that will require multiple staff. Certainly the way this has been set up is that it would be full-time construction observation. I think that's really important in terms of this project because that's a long length of pipe, and there's going to be locating that's required, and really having those accurate drawings of what actually gets installed in the ground is going to be key to Mark and his staff as locate requests come in. And ultimately, it's a huge investment for the community, and we want to make sure that it goes in according to the plans and specifications so that it's a long-term, long-lasting project for the city.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess.
Mr. Mayor, I will need a motion to approve that. Yeah, and just so you are aware, We have built that into our, financing with the PFA. So that's all built into the loan and all the, grants and so forth, all that final project, which I'll get to later. But there was an estimate initially, and that is all built in as part of the project.
Can we get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Council.
We will now have Bruce Thompson, discussion on the removing sprinkler sewer charge.
Bruce Thompson, 1133 Golf Court. Thank you, Mayor, Council, for hearing me on this. Golf Court, where we're at, it's 13 homes, dead-end street, built on fill. Contractor came in, put the house up, put a couple of inches of black dirt down, put the tree in the yard, laid the sod, put the sprinkler on. When that house sold, off to the next house. So it isn't that we, want to have a pristine Sartell yard. It's we have to water to have grass where we're at. So with the new sewer rates going into effect, pumping it to St. Cloud, last year was expensive enough. This year will be extremely expensive. So asking the council if they would consider possibly allowing us to put a separate meter in just for that at our own expense for that water that's not going down the sewer. I guess, like I said, we would pay for that. And it is in ordinance that anything that goes through the meter, I guess, gets billed sewer. Is that correct?
That is correct. Anything, all your water usage is automatically charged a sewer charge. So your sewer charge is based on all your water usage.
Okay. And that, there's no exceptions to that?
There are no exceptions except for, we have a couple of commercial that have a separate permit with us.
Okay.
High user commercials have some deduct for food processing, but
Okay.
they have a separate standalone discharge permit that's regulated through us in the MPCA. So
Sure. Then I go to the fire hall. People buying water there for, what is it, $1 per $100. So $30 for 3,000 gallons of water. Where residents like us, we're looking at 63 cents plus $1.30 sewer for $1.93. Majority of our water is not, summertime is not going down the sewer. So can we be a little fair with this? Out of town residents are getting it for $1 for half price. So that's my my spiel, I guess, to the council. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it, or?
Are you talking everybody in Golf Court or just yourself?
No, well, I have a sprinkler. There's 4 of us that have sprinklers out of those 13 homes. So I'm asking for 3 of us, I guess. But if you change the ordinance, that's not saying somebody else can't come in. I don't expect there's a lot of sprinklers in town, but that would.
Yeah, there are.
that's something that we'd have to. I don't know if we know exactly how many. We suspect some of them, but we'd have to do a little bit more digging to find out how many there are.
Bruce, how much usage, how many gallons are we talking? I know last year was dry.
Right, and pray for rain. That's all there is. I had one bill that was 700, and now we're talking 3 months.
Quarterly.
700. I had another one that was 500. Granted, I put some sod in, so it really had to be watered, type of thing. But that was before this new sewer rate kicked in too. So I just, and it's always been that way. The watering is subsidizing on the sewer. It's always, the city has always said, well, if you want green grass, you got to pay for it. But now it's getting really expensive
So are you looking like for a 6-month window?
Well, with a separate meter, if we put a separate meter in, and we'd have to pay for a meter charge or whatever, I mean, that water would be metered separately, and you would pay on water, not sewer. You'd still have your regular
Yep.
water sewer bill that would go through, you know, your regular meter.
I mean, you're not gonna sprinkle in the winter.
No, you're not
obviously.
sprinkling in the winter. And again, you're gonna pray for rain,
Right.
so, not during construction season, right?
I'd be in favor of it. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but yeah, I mean, what you pay for the meter and the installation is gonna cover your first bill, correct?
Well, this is something that would need to be discussed with staff and everything. I mean, we can't, it's not gonna get decided tonight.
Correct.
But I just wanted to get this out here and ask, for one thing. And I guess my only other question was, Sarah put in the packet here about, if the council wishes to consider this option, staff would need to do some research on how this would apply to our water supply plan to ensure any ordinance changes comply with an identified conservation efforts.
Yeah, so we have through our water supply plan, we have to, identify certain conservation practices and ways that we're, encouraging or kind of, not forcing, encouraging people to, conserve water. So we might have to look at what the rate is, if there's times maybe that you're not allowed to sprinkle, things like that, because we, at the state level, they require us to be mindful of that, and we're supposed to be implementing practices to our residents in our community that conserve water usage overall. It's a precious resource that we're supposed to be mindful of.
Okay.
So we would wanna make sure whatever we put in place, we're not violating that plan that we have to the state of Minnesota. It still can be done, there are places that do it, we just would have to make sure whatever we propose is mindful of that plan and those requirements. So like, even things like rain barrels, encouraging that, the time to sprinkle. We don't want you to be sprinkling, in the middle of the day when it's 95 degrees outside, you know, things like that maybe is
Right.
what we could see.
Right. And you see some running when it's raining.
Yeah, exactly.
Type things, but yeah, okay. Then my last question is, why is the rate at the fire hall not have sewer on it?
It's our bulk water sale for the city, so that's how it's always.
It has not been changed for quite a few years. It's
Okay.
been a long time.
But you're seeing what I'm saying with the rest of us, though, that we're paying sewer on everything that goes through that meter,
Nope,
so.
yep.
It was
Thanks,
always,
Sarah.
it used to always be quite a bit higher. The rate probably should be adjusted out there.
Mhm.
You know, that used to always be triple what you paid at home.
Sure,
It's obviously now gone the other way where
right,
it's caught up.
okay,
So it's probably time to look at an adjustment there. We talked about that after you came in, to be honest.
sure. You guys will have further discussion, possibly? Do I need to come back?
Well,
What's our next step?
do we need a recommendation from?
But I think what we need is, we need to know the council's consensus on how you wanna move forward, so that then, if there's something that staff needs to research and provide some, you know, guidance on, we can do that.
Well, I'm completely for it, because if Foley does grow, people are gonna build houses and people are gonna put sprinklers in when they do it. It's just a selling point for the guy selling the house too. So I'm for it.
Well, the thing I look at it is, if we allow that, that's gonna take away a good chunk of money for our water and sewer projects. And we need the money to keep everything updated as far as the water, well, like the water tower, all the lines, pumps, everything else. And if we put a dent into our sewer and water fund because we're cutting off the sewer fund for this, I'm afraid we may have to really bump up the water price. And it's high as it is, but it would go so much higher in order to make up for all the money we're gonna be losing. And that's another thing we have to look into.
Well, your funds are separate. Your water fund is separate from your sewer fund. So it wouldn't be your water that would be going up, it would be your sewer that the people like me are subsidizing.
Yeah, and if we lose all that money on sewer, we're gonna have to make it up somewhere. And the way we'd have to make it up is we'd have to raise the water. Raise the price on water to cover the loss on the sewer. But that's something we'll have to discuss, see what we can come up with.
Well, the only thing I can say is, you know, you have the ordinance the way it is now. You can change the ordinance if you see a big hit, I guess. You can always change the ordinance back. That's a vote in a public hearing. Correct?
Yeah, but if we give it to you guys out there, you know, everybody in town that has sprinklers are gonna want the same thing.
Well, I think he's asking for the whole town. He's not asking for.
I'm not asking just for.
He's not
I'm
asking for 3
I'm
people.
asking to be treated
Okay,
fairly.
yeah, see,
You
that-
can't do that for just 3 people. That's,
No,
Yeah,
no,
it
no.
just-
I'm
I mean,
not
I
asking-
want 24-hour police protection at my house, but I'm not gonna get that.
But it
And
just,
I'm afraid you're not gonna get everybody that's gonna wanna do that for the expense that it's gonna take to put a separate meter
yeah.
in that.
See, the way I look at it, I don't water my lawn, but yet I'm gonna have to pay a higher water bill for the people that do water their lawn.
We're gonna recover money after they put the meter in. It's not, we're not losing money on
We're
this
still
deal.
We're still paying for what we're using.
You're paying
We're
for
just
the
not
water, but
paying
not the
extra.
sewer.
We're just not paying extra.
You're not paying
I
the
don't
sewer.
wanna beat it to death. You guys got
Well,
other things
I-
going on tonight. But I will say, you know, what the planning commission said here about dead, dry grass under a camper. If we can't water and get some grass to grow, everybody's gonna have dead, dry grass. So then we're all gonna need an impervious surface.
I would like to make a comment. I think that, in the big picture, watering grass should not be done with this very expensive pumped treated water. And I believe our ordinance calls for the sanitary sewer, but we also have to have storm sewers. And we have to maintain storm sewers. And if your water isn't going in the sanitary sewer, it is going in the storm sewer. And Foley maintains their water system very well, and I would like to compliment our maintenance department, because I've lived where they don't. And the storm sewer has to be maintained, it has to be flushed out, it has, you know, crises have to be dealt with, has to be replaced. We're replacing 100-year-old pipes in town here. So maintenance is almost more than, you know, the cost of the sewer isn't just, or the cost of the water isn't just the water, it's the cost of, we need a new water tower, and we might need to dig a new well because, you know, we don't have the water resource. So I think, mowing or watering, irrigating lawns is kind of gotta be dealt with in a different manner long-term. And that can be rain barrels, that can be different types of grass, that can be, I don't know, have to call soil and water, because they'll tell you what you can do to not water your lawn. But it's very expensive to use all those gallons of treated water that we pump from our well to water grass. And so I think
agree.
in the long run, we don't wanna encourage sprinkler systems that use our water that we use for drinking and household stuff to go on the lawns. Not that you can't water, but I think that probably you're looking at rain barrels and different types of grass that require less water in the long run. That's not gonna solve this summer's problem.
Then you'd have to have it rain.
Huh?
Then you would have to have it rain.
And the rain barrels store the rain, I mean,
True.
We've argued this all night. If we can't adjust the summer rates accordingly, and if they wanna put a meter in, I don't have a problem with that. I like green.
Well,
And with any, I don't think people are gonna abuse this.
Sarah?
So I guess the question is, what's the consensus of the council, if they wanna look at that or not, so that if there is, we can, at the staff level, get some more information on what the impact of this would be and what options may exist out there, I guess, if that's.
That's
But I would
really-
just like to know what the consensus of the council is, prior to staff doing that. Like
I'm for it.
you're not deciding what it is, but it just,
Oh,
if
I'm-
there's interest in looking at it.
I'm interested in looking at it.
Yep.
And we
got-
still have control of the watering. You know, you could put a ban on it, you could put restrictions
Oh,
on it,
yeah, we
you could
always
whatever,
have to maintain that.
whatever. I mean, it
For
isn't that
emergency.
they're gonna do this 24/7.
If
And-
they're gonna
and
do
that-
it, if they're gonna do it 24/7, they're gonna pay. It's that simple.
Exactly.
There's a meter on there.
And I think it also, we also need to recognize too, when we did have the drought last year, I mean, I think the Public Works Director said this, people did very well as far as scaling back and recognizing that emergency situation, so I think the community should be recognized that at least they did, what was necessary when we needed them to do that. But we can look into it and bring some more information back if that's the consensus.
I think that's a consensus. We'll just
we
have to
can
check into it.
answer all the questions at that time.
And we might have a better handle on how many gallons we think we're talking about here. Cause it may not be as big as we think it is too, that's possible.
Right.
And there is ordinance against sand points, correct?
Yes.
Is that?
Thank you.
In the Duisma. In the Duisma, drinking water supply management area.
Thank you, Bruce. We'll now move on to discussion on 45 Highway 23 West conditional use permit.
Okay, well,
Sarah?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I think the property owner is here, and I do want to just bring up, they have been in contact with staff the last week and a half or so, on some of the areas, so if you wanna go up there and kind of explain that, on where we're at, and we're making some progress.
Yep, thank you, Sarah. Council, Mayor, thank you for opening the meeting up to your citizens. Thank you so much. So,
Dan, just name and address.
sorry, it's Dan Haynes. I'm at 45 Highway 23 West.
Thank you.
Foley's a great town. Lived here for 20-plus years, taught for almost 30 years. We have a great community, and I think that what I'm offering at our place is something unique and different, makes Foley a destination, I've been told. And with that has come some growing pains, and I'd like to address those. So part of whether it's a CUP or an agreement or whatever, the way I look at my property is I want it cleaned up. To that end, I had I scheduled some leveling off of my property so that I could take material and stack it properly out of sight. And the gentleman that I contacted said he gave me a date. I moved the material that was behind my property, behind the house and unseen, into an area where it can be seen from the road, and he didn't show up. And we couldn't connect, and so there that material sits. I have since contacted him a couple of times about coming out, getting the proper drainage and leveling, and so I can use that area again. He has assured me that right after the road restrictions are off, that he'll be able to bring his machines in and smooth out the area where I can then put that material back out of sight. As far as the building itself goes, I appreciate your patience with that. That has been on my mind, in the back of my mind for some time, to get my building finished, and have made great strides in the last 2 weeks. In the last 2 weeks, we've passed both mechanical and electrical. I was in contact with our building inspector, Nancy Scott, and she informed me yesterday, as I told her, I'll be ready tomorrow. She informed me, you have to do the whole upstairs, even though it's storage. So And I apologize for my appearance. I was literally at Menards half hour ago, an hour ago, and have material to finish the upper. My wife did take some pictures of how the lower part is taking shape. It's going to be a showcase for my work, and I hopefully will gain more clients because of that. All I'm asking, or what I'd like to do is explain that I have been working toward that diligently, and and the end is in sight. And just ask for a bit more patience with you, and that you're understanding that. To me, it doesn't make sense to take the material that I have stacked outside, move it, have him come in, move it away, have him do his work, and then move it again. So, I do have, my plan is to have, again, all of that out of sight, and then on the west side of my property, I would like to have, that next step of the progress of the process is to have him put some kind of pump system in, so the water that comes off the building and the hard surface can be moved. Right now we live in a swamp. We live in a low area, and the lack of adequate drainage. I'm sitting in water now, again, waiting for my guy to show up. The building is being addressed, and the materials that are stacked outside are being addressed also. Oh, and last thing is, we do have the CUP allows for us to have 3 buildings out there, and I had this, what I call a hillbilly RV, was sold last year. The clients asked me to hold it till spring, which I did. I took another building out that was going to go out within a couple of days, and that got longer than expected. If I can have the drainage properly, if that area is properly set up, I can set buildings further back from the road so they aren't visible from the highways easily.
Sounds good.
Dan, do you
Sarah?
foresee, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
So with the 3 limitations you have there, do you plan, once you clean up the west, to put more to the west of the, southwest of the house? More to sell?
I would use that as a stationing area, which means I have my 3 out there,
Yep.
and this one's going to Beatrice down in Minnetrista, and I have to, I'm waiting for her to be ready or whatever. I would set those buildings, again, back away from the road on the west side of the property, possibly even on a trailer, so they're, ready to go, that kind of thing.
The other question was how much, I'm sorry.
No problem.
The other question was, I gotta word this right. How many of those are your own personal, for your own yard art?
That's a really good statement. We have a greenhouse. My wife has a greenhouse, and we have a she shed.
Okay.
Those 2.
Are they gonna count those 2? I mean, I guess that's the only other issue I had with it was.
Good question.
Not that it was an issue, but just.
Yep.
Could I ask, since Bill's here, I don't think we've considered his personal ones as part of the count of the units. Is that how you recall it too, in the conditional use permit? Right. Okay, so I wouldn't consider his personal as part of the 3 units. Okay. I will say this does indicate you're not supposed to display units or store construction materials on the west property line. And that's, and I know that was discussed at length when we were doing the CUP process at the Planning Commission level. So I'm glad to hear that there's work on that. The one thing that is new, and I think I talked to Mrs. Haynes, who's
Tracy.
here today, was the storage of the materials on the rear property line. That was not there prior. That can't be allowed. There is no storage of outdoor materials cannot be stored visible per the zoning ordinance. So I would recommend that we require a fence of some kind or something to screen that at a minimum, so that's not visible from the road. I'm not sure what goes in the shed and what it stays
Right.
out, so I can't,
Right.
maybe most of it's gonna disappear, I guess, I don't know exactly, but that is, a concern that we have had raised to us. So it's finishing the building, is the most pressing concern, I think we're getting close to that, the
Mhm.
building official would recommend a tight deadline on that, and then some type of screening to, I guess not see all that visible material in the back.
I couldn't agree more. And again, that's why I mentioned at the beginning that it's a great place to live. We can have these discussions. It shouldn't be contentious. If it is, I'll take 51% of the blame on that because I'm the one that is in charge of my property. I did appreciate, and I told you this when we talked, I appreciated the kick in the pants. Sometimes even adults need that. Even adults with good intentions need that. And you know, working with you, Sarah, and has been easy. So I appreciate your willingness to answer the phone and answer questions. Same with Nancy. So again, that material, I put about 3,000 square feet of material in that building, which has been, I knew I would need that. And so it has been stored and sitting and waiting, and a lot of material has disappeared because of that, which is wonderful. Now, I do have a couple of, I guess I would call them trees. I had a welder build these platforms for material that sit behind the property, behind the house. And those, I don't think those are visible from the road. That's my intention, is to have them.
And that's the biggest part is screening or protecting it so that people driving by aren't seeing it. That's, you know, you see that all over in our industrial park and all
Agreed.
other places. We have screening, you don't necessarily see the work and what's happening.
Agreed.
Yep.
So maybe it's one fence that kind of shields it all on the sides, and then you can't see. I don't know how that's exactly gonna work, but that's just something that has been brought to your attention, I guess, at this point.
Sounds good.
Dan, what are your plans with these old vehicles?
So the one was moved, the Hillbilly RV, that is moved. I bought a Christmas present for my wife, and that's that Chevy pickup that's green. My plan is to put that in a display. So to move that up onto some rocks and do some landscaping around it. Tracy's a photographer, and she would like that as a photo op area.
Well, when you have those out in front, you know how that kind of looks.
Couldn't agree, yep.
Would that be?
Yeah.
Would one of those or future vehicles like that would go off on your west side also?
Well, again, we don't want to display things on the west side.
No, and I guess the one concern is we have an ordinance. How does it state? Is it?
Vehicles have to be registered.
They have to be registered. So I don't know if you could get a collector plate on that or something,
Okay.
because that would be then licensed.
Okay.
Because I think if you don't drive the vehicle, there's options.
Yeah, okay. No, there's no transmission and no engine, so
I just don't know how I don't know that there's an ordinance or anything specifically stated that would exempt that. It's actually saying it has to be licensed, and we talk about this a lot.
Okay.
I would ask, if I could add, I would ask that we set some parameters, on deadlines with this.
That's my next question.
Mhm.
Is what's your time frame?
Well, I was hoping today, and then when she said, nope, the entire upstairs needed to be wrapped with something, I picked up the material today. I'm not gonna do barnwood, that would be individual boards, and that would just take too long. I was hoping to be done by Thursday because Nancy's back in town Thursday. That's optimistic, and it depends upon how my crew and I attack the rest of that. It's possible. I would say next week, Tuesday, is more realistic, but certainly could be done.
A suggestion, 30 days, the building needs to be done and sealed, occupied. Maybe another 30 days, so 60 days for some fencing or screening to be installed, because we still are dealing with, I don't know if the frost is out or where we're at with spring. That's a suggestion.
Well,
Nope, you can't, you can come up here, but
About what?
The fencing for the back, where the materials are now, if we get the guy out there to finish the filling in so that we can move all that material, then is fencing required?
Right.
If the material's not there,
No problem.
yes, it's, you cannot, outdoor storage of materials is prohibited by
Okay.
ordinance. So if you're gonna put any outdoor storage of materials, it needs to be screened. That's why we thought maybe a fence just to screen it all off.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds good.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
You talked about a greenhouse and a she shed. How many things are on the front lawn? And is the greenhouse and is the she shed, are they stored on the front lawn?
Yeah, I have an area where there's a garden with raised beds. There's a greenhouse in there. And the she shed is up by the house. So they're
Okay.
it's kinda like a big garden.
Okay.
So the sheds the 3 that we would put on display are on that little on our road.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's kinda like some landscaping and stuff
Yeah. It's all
around there,
landscaped.
yeah.
Okay.
It might be easier to see it now than you could in the winter.
Yeah.
But all those are saleable items that you have out there. Yeah, no.
If I sold hers, I'd be living with you.
Well, I already sold one, so he had to build me a
But-
new one.
But, you know, they certainly are they certainly are for people to, to catch the eye and,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, that, you
And
know,
the 3 on the road are usually sold or for sale. If we're displaying them, they're either for sale or they've been sold and we're
Yeah,
waiting
yeah.
to deliver.
'Cause I'm looking at those out front, I'm
Yeah.
looking at they're displayed for sale.
Yep.
I would say by June 7th, if you don't have your occupancy, I mean, you gotta stop anyways then
Yeah.
doing any business, so give you till June 7th to get that and then see what the weather does here, where you can build a fence, 'cause I mean, right now, you're fighting Mother Nature, so hopefully it dries out.
And we can, check in on progress and then report back if that's what the council decides to do.
If you don't have the
Is it-
occupancy.
The CO, I think, and that's doable, that's not as weather dependent, that's inside work, so they should be able to get that.
Okay. Thank you.
thank you guys.
We'll now have open forum. If there is anybody here who wishes to speak about a concern or a question they have with the city, we ask that they please come up to the podium and state their name and address and what their concern is. Okay, we'll now move on to department reports. Police Department, Katie McMillan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you received our stat report for the month of April. We had 351 calls. Just to recap, traffic enforcement, speed is up a lot, you can see there. Last month we had 21, this month we have 51. And distracted driving was our saturation this last month. So that is in the driving conduct, which people were well behaved with that. Suspicious activity reports were up, and I mean, just your general, there's nothing too alarming. In 2021, we had 293 calls in the month of April, so we are up quite a bit from last year. Some other things to report, we did post for a part-time officer eligibility list. I only received 2 applicants in 2.5 weeks. I'll be working with personnel if I reopen that to see if we can get more applicants, since colleges are just getting out, and then like the 2 that we get, interview those just to see, so we don't lose them. But I'll be working with personnel on those options. Bike rodeo is coming up June 18th. A lot of donations are coming in for this event. I had one local business donate 20 bicycles, so it's going to be a great event. last day is May 27th, so you will be seeing tractors around town, of course. And then the regular last day of school is June 2nd. Other than that, that is all I have, unless you have something for me.
Katie, on your speed, how many on Norman Avenue?
I don't have that breakdown, but.
Reason I ask that is I've received a few complaints.
And we've been sitting on Norman Avenue quite a bit lately. I know I have after school, because we have gotten those complaints too.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Yep.
With the Highway 23 project starting, what do you foresee happening through on that stretch of road there?
Yep, if there's accidents, State Patrol has asked us to, like, just your minor, damage to property, car damage, like fender benders. State Patrol technically is responsible for taking crashes on that since it is their detour. But for the fender benders, they asked us to assist with that. If there is with injuries, they will, take those accidents investigations. For speed enforcement, I did ask the county if we can use their speed trailer, and they said, yep, they'll put it wherever. I do have extra posting out for my officers that we will be doing extra enforcement for that stretch. With that becoming a 4-way stop, I know people are not gonna be used to that, so we're gonna be focusing on that also.
I would even piggyback to Mark on that by the post office that might have to get signs on both sides as well, unless it's already been discussed. Mark?
MnDOT's responsible for all signage.
Oh, are they gonna take the detour?
Yep,
Oh, perfect, never mind.
Any other questions for her?
This is the post office stuff, right?
Yes.
This is the post office you're talking about?
That intersection.
Okay.
They have a sign kind of in place.
We will now move on to City Engineer Jared Griffith.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. I have a couple things to update you on tonight. One being that the last update I heard was that the 23 project is still planning to start Monday the 9th. The other update I have is yesterday myself and our environmental staff met with the tent board out at the industrial park site. And just to confirm, what we had showed previously as our wetland delineations, that northeast corner, they liked what we had showing there, so that was going to stay. We looked at that in the incidental wetland area north of that water channel that goes through there. Good news there, we did seem to eliminate that down to from 2.6 acres to at maximum 0.8 acres. But we will be doing further soil samples throughout that area there to potentially shrink that even further for you. And with that, that's all I have tonight, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Does anyone have any questions for him? We'll move on to Public Works and Fire, Mark Pattenfoos.
Mr. Mayor, Council, good evening again. I don't have too much specific tonight. Trying to flush water main system out, sweeping streets the guys are, and patching, and then a lot of locates on the project, moving the gas, all the power poles, all that. There's a lot of locating. The one day we actually had 29 one-call tickets one day alone, so we're getting slammed some days. Pool's still scheduled to go for that first week of June, and we'll have that. We're working with summer help staff, and that's when you'll have an update on that. But I don't have that. The pickup we talked about last month getting rid of, the one that we're getting is just about ready. We gotta get some warning lights on it yet. I talked to Councilmember Brosh about going to County's had good luck with Hillary out of Zimmerman. They do have an auction coming up the 24th of May. If we can catch that one, can we take it there to dispose of it? And that'd satisfy all the pickup with the V-plow that was in last month's packet. Instead of quoting it on ourselves, it's gonna be a lot less work. And they've had very good luck there disposing of their stuff. We talked to Kevin Hiller today.
Yeah.
Might be, plow might be better in the fall, but the market's so hot right now that, and if I catch this one or the next one, I'll do that.
I
Do we
would,
have to have a motion to dispose of it?
Well, yeah, I thought we did.
Did we already?
We
Okay.
did.
We did,
Okay.
yeah,
Are we putting a minimum on it?
On an auction, no, it'll go at an auction there.
That's online. A lot
That's
of it
all
is,
online,
yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I have anything specific for you guys tonight, unless you have something for me, questions or.
does anyone have a question for him? We'll move on to administration. Sarah Brunn.
Okay, Mark mentioned the pool, we're still working through that and are hiring on that. I don't know that we're fully staffed, we're really checking into schedules. We don't have an overabundance of people, I'll tell you that. So if you hear anybody that's interested, send them my way, we still have been looking for some help. So, stay tuned on that. Also, it's an election year, so we will be gearing up for that, as far as you'll see appointments of election officials, training, lots of stuff that's going on with that. One of the things that happened at the county level is we may get one more piece of election equipment. So hoping to have that one by this cycle, which is the voter assisted machine. So we'll see how that goes, but keep that in mind. For those who are interested, filings for the city actually happen later in the summer because we do not conduct a primary for the city elections. We will definitely be posting that and passing on that information when it becomes available, on all of our social media, website, the newspaper, all sorts of that. So keep an eye on that, but we do have some work that'll start to pick up here with that. I also want to update you on the rental license enforcement. We have one on Dewey, and I know we've talked about it, and a couple of you have mentioned it or had some discussions with me one-on-one. We are working through that one with legal. We have sent some notices. They have made some contact. It is a bit of a difficult situation, but we are proceeding with enforcement, and we will take this individual to court for non-compliance with the rental ordinance. I want to make sure you guys are aware of that and still comfortable with that direction. But it's been a long road with this process. So, like we've talked before, it needs to be done. I also provided you a copy of an invoice. I just wanted you to see this. So with the MnDOT project, when we do a project that is in coordination with MnDOT, we get billed ahead of time for those costs. So I got billed, and they hadn't processed our change order yet with the reduction in scope that we did last Monday. So the bill, I'm working through that with MnDOT, but I do want to get approval of this amount, which is what we think it's pretty close to what we think it's going to be, but MnDOT's still processing it so that I can cut that check. It is due within 30 days. I do not want to hold up our project by not having that approval through you. So it was on your bills list, but I just wanted you to be aware that we will be cutting that check as soon as we have that change order processed and all those changes made, I guess, to the project. So any questions on that? I wrote down the number here. It is different than that number we talked about on Monday because there is that 3% design and some admin that MnDOT adds on top. And if you remember that contract we did a couple months ago, it kind of broke that down for you.
So are we still cutting the other check, or is that included?
This is all the project costs and the MnDOT admin
Everything.
costs. Yep.
Okay.
So we front all that money. If anything changes throughout the project and we owe or we are owed money back, they work all that out at the end of the project. And we've done this before, so it isn't the first time I've done this process. I just wanted you to know that that money is going out. And then the last item was this kind of came in late, so I apologize for that. But we have been working with PFA, and you have a resolution, and then you have this color-coded spreadsheet. I don't want you to be overwhelmed by this spreadsheet. What this is I've been working with our financing person from Bolton, Chelsea, and Kathy from the PFA. And we have been compiling all sorts of information, all sorts of operating expenditures, capital, all sorts of different things that we have with our sewer fund. And that's all part of the loan application. That's submitted into Kathy, but one of the things Kathy Barrett will require for our PFA loan to close is a commitment that we are going to raise rates and pay that money back. So what I have provided for you, because I do not want to delay the loan closing because interest is creeping up and it's creeping up fast. I am providing you that resolution. That resolution indicates that you will raise rates to pay the loan and to cover the cost of this system. If you don't have enough for rates, we will tap into reserves, we will tap into the general fund if needed. That is what that resolution indicates. I'd recommend the council pass it so that if we can close this loan and keep this moving, we do so. I did get confirmation from Kathy at about 3:45 this afternoon that that resolution will suffice as far as commitment, so she does recommend we pass that. Does anybody have any questions?
So is this just with the city of St. Cloud? Or is this the whole project?
This is the whole project.
Okay.
So if you look to the far right, see that surplus deficit side? That's what we need to close. That's the gap each year. And you'll see it starts to work its way up once the project is done and we have to start paying on that debt. But it builds in everything. We have all the operating, all of our already committed debt service, our new debt service. We have built in inflation factors for operating and for the St. Cloud fees that we pay. It has everything that we know to date. It could change because there is some contingency built in here, so it could come down with that. If more PSIG money were to become available, it could adjust down for that. I would consider this as a high end result. Unless interest, if you see the interest is already up 0.5%. So if there are no other questions, I would recommend that the council consider adopting this resolution that I provided.
I'll make that motion, we adopt resolution 2022-15.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I don't have anything else unless you have questions for me.
Does anyone have any questions for Sarah?
We have to make a motion.
You already did in the consent agenda with the bills,
Alright.
but I just wanted to make sure you
Alright.
saw what it was all for.
Any old business?
Where are we at on the water bills for shut-offs?
Very, very good question. We have not done a shut-off, but we've discussed it. But what I will say, we are putting back on the late fees. I might have mentioned that earlier, I can't remember. So we are gonna start assessing the late fees again. And then, I don't know, have you talked about a date?
Nope.
Okay. We do plan on doing disconnects. And that is really just to get some people caught up. But the late fee will also encourage those payments. I think our last outstanding, 35,000 was our last one that we just ran today.
It's outstanding?
That's what's outstanding right now. I think part of that is, we haven't been charging the late fee, so that's going back on. And when we don't do shut-offs, we do find that there are some properties that just do not pay until the disconnect happens.
So I wouldn't have to pay my bill?
You're being a good council member and setting a good example.
I would say we impose that July 1. If I need to make a motion, I'll make a motion.
For,
July 1st, we'll start shut-offs if people aren't up to date.
I think we'll do it before then if we can.
Oh, perfect.
But yeah, that's fine if you wanna make that motion.
Well, then what date should we use? How busy are you?
We'll have to look at the schedule, what works. We didn't have discussion on this, so. You gotta have so many days in there and all that, and
Well,
we
that's
don't
what
wanna
I'm
do
asking, that's why
we
I
don't
was
wanna do
wondering.
the week of the pool, things like that.
That's what I was wondering, if
So,
July
yeah.
1st gives you enough time.
Don't wanna do it over the 4th week. You know,
It
Cons-
is May already, isn't it?
yeah.
You think we can't do that?
We could do in the middle, that second, before fun days that week, maybe. Get ready for that.
We have talked about it at the office level, about that process of the notices and stuff like that. So I know we have come up with some options on how we can get those notices out, fairly quickly. But it really is, it could be a lot of cranking this time just because there's a lot of people.
Yep.
So I don't know, you wanna just say July 15th, or what do you think?
That really, That we, yeah,
July?
we could do one in June if we can make it. Then you can do a fall one again if you want. You know, that way you get your double.
Any other old business?
Do you want there's a motion out.
We have a motion. So what date we talking, and we talking
What time? What do you mean, 15th?
the 6th or the 14th or in June?
Can we leave it vague, Councilmember Brosh? No, I'm just saying for staff to, I mean,
By July.
July 1st, I was being very generous, I thought.
but can we do it before that?
Oh, yeah, I think he's saying, I think he's saying no, aren't you saying like no later, you want one done by then? Isn't
Yeah.
that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
July 1st,
Yeah.
I
Or
think that's
sooner.
doable.
or sooner.
I don't, if it's a couple days after, we're probably gonna, well, we'll shoot for July 1st. That's fine, I think.
Is this a normal amount for late water fees? That seems awful high.
37,000? It's high for a monthly, yes it is.
Yeah.
You know, we would see higher amounts, but when it's quarterly, the bills are bigger and, you know, we just expect that, so.
So I'll make that motion, July 1st or sooner if staff can get the, what, warnings out?
I'll s-
second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any new business? Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Get the camera off.
Okay, very, very simple.
Turn that off.
Don't